The following video is from an earlier era where my work in terms of standards featured poor picture and audio quality, out of place or false profanity, and R-rated imagery, both for myself and the works I was reviewing and writing about. This combination resulted in videos with extremely primitive and bare-bones quality, containing opinions I probably wouldn't stand by today. While these videos are undeniably poor and dated in terms of quality, I've chosen to present them in their unaltered form, with the exception of modifying movie footage to comply with YouTube's strict copyright policies, to acknowledge the long and difficult journey I've had to endure to get better. And honestly, what could showcase that journey more effectively than being upfront about how low the quality of my videos truly were? So, please watch this video with caution. Thank you. You got a special kind of show, but some points that it's never know. At this point to be so genius in your mind. You're so profound and acts that well, but not as much as we can tell, because you are the one who looks too far behind, with no kind. Welcome to Movie Rehab. Are you sane enough to escape the show? Let's talk about Superman. The first Superman movie? Awesome. Superman 2? Funny awesome. Superman 4? Not a good movie. Superman Returns? Strongly underrated, and in my personal book, an epic conclusion to the original movies. My thoughts on Man of Steel. I know that I'm probably gonna piss off 3 co-reviews on Teen Night Saturn for saying that, but this movie is, in my opinion, one of my all-time favorite comic book adaptations ever made. The only movies that beat Man of Steel to me are The Dark Knight and X-Men Days of Future Past. I once planned on doing a review on Man of Steel, but I think that both Emma Prevost and Cecil Trachtenberg did a tremendous job at summing up my overall thoughts on the movie, and I recommend you check out their reviews. But who knows, maybe I'm gonna change my mind someday. Now, you probably have noticed that I left out a movie, and you're right. But I have to make a confession. I've never had the chance to watch the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. I really wanted to buy it, but here's the problem. I'm not able to buy a simple DVD on Amazon, and they apparently went out of print, which means that I'm forced to wait for a re-release. The only thing left to say is I can't review what I haven't seen, so it will possibly take some years for this to happen. Instead, let's take a look at Superman 3. So our movie starts off with the main character Gus Gorman, played by the late comedy legend Richard Pryor. His character is looking for a job, but Gus gets told that he's not allowed to beg for unemployment benefits anymore. The reason? Well...
Mr. Gorman, according to our record, you've been unemployed for 36 weeks.
No, it's 35.
Not counting this week. You secured employment last June as a messenger and were discharged after 1 day for losing...
No. See, they said I lost that. I did not lose it. It was stolen by a pickpocket.
A television set?
It was a teeny, weensy Japanese 2-inch television set. Anybody?
The only other employment you found was in a fast food joint, which lasted 28 minutes.
Boy, I thought my life was weird.
Well, you know, those people are crazy. They expect you to learn that stuff in 1 day, right? I mean, like, hold the lettuce, hold the ketchup. Can I have some sauce, please? I don't want any sauce.
Mr.
2
Gorman.
buns, no buns, some cheese, no cheese.
Mr. Gorman, the city of Metropolis is generous to a fault. But
I'm not the fault.
36 weeks of chronic unemployment, 36 weeks of living off the taxes of hardworking citizens. Do you know what you are?
Don't call me a bum. I'm not a bum.
You are, I was about to say, no longer eligible.
No, look.
Next.
Wait a minute. What about this week? I need this week.
Next.
You mean that's it? Finish, like over. Huh.
He then asks a guy for some fire, and then happily discovers on a matchbox that a big company for computer programmers is looking for new employees. After that, we get to see one of the strangest intros I've ever seen. Why? It doesn't feature the regular Superman intro that we all know and love, and more likely the intro to a 1930s slapstick comedy. However, I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but personally, I think it's funny.
Say thank you.
Not the funniest thing ever, but it has its charm. And besides, it does give you an idea what kind of tone this movie's gonna hit on. With that said, however, there is so much going on within those few minutes that you won't even notice the Superman title, since it just looks exactly the same as the other font titles. I will also admit that, even though I kinda enjoyed that sequence, that it feels very out of place. We then cut back to Gus, who's actually now working for the computer company, and we also learn that he's surprisingly good in what he's doing.
Good Lord. How did you do that?
I don't know. I just did it.
It actually makes some sense, given that a lot of people have hidden talents. As an example, I built 2 whole DVD shelves all by myself, even though I never knew that I was talented at constructing my very own furniture. Back to topic. Perry White, the boss of Metropolis Planet, isn't happy that Jimmy Olsen didn't take pictures of Superman saving a man from drowning in his own car, which makes sense in context after watching that scene from the intro earlier. Clark then comes in and explains that he's going to visit his old home place, Smallwood, to meet his old classmates again. We then also find out that Lois Lane gets herself ready for her holidays.
Well, Clark, you know, some people get to go all the way to Smallville, and then there are others of us who have to go to Bermuda.
Oh, hey Lois, before you go, could you please show me the beach photos you made a few years ago? I would really appreciate it. But let's get serious here. The real reason why Lois suddenly disappears is because Margaret Kidder was very angry that the producers fired Richard Donner from Superman 2. So she only accepted to appear in the first and last scene of the movie. That also explains why Kidder's performance feels so phoned in. That is also the exact same reason why Gene Hackman didn't reprise his role as Lex Luthor again. Well, that was until Superman 4, of course, and, well, we all know how that one turned out. Meanwhile, we learn that being the best employee unfortunately doesn't help Gus on a financial level.
Hey, what is this?
First paycheck?
It's the first ripoff, man. It's supposed to get $2.25 a week, right? This says $143.80. How am I supposed to live on that?
His coworker then explains that the money is gone somewhere else, and he then tells Gus something very interesting.
And what happens to all those half cents? The company gets it?
No, not really. They can't be bothered to collect a half cent from your paycheck any more than you could.
Then what happens to them?
Well, they're just floating around out there. The computer's nowhere. How many sugars?
1.5.
You know, something I really like about Richard Pryor's character is that while he's not the bravest or the funniest, believe me, we'll get to that one later, the writers didn't turn him into a complete idiot rather than just a goofball. And say anything you want about Richard Pryor's performance, but his character could have been so much worse. Plus, it's very refreshing to see a comic relief character who's actually competent at something. So he hacks into the computer and manages to get a lot more money.
You bet.
We then cut back to Clark and Jimmy, who are sitting in a bus that drives to Smallville. However, the ride gets stopped by the police because there's danger near the road.
Okay, your choice. You can turn back or else you can pull over the side here and wait till it's all over.
How long will that take?
Well, I don't know. You can't tell about these fires. I mean, that fire, it's spreading like wildfire.
Jimmy then leaves the bus with Clark following him. The reason is that Jimmy wants to take the advantage to take some pictures from the damaged factory, even though it was stated that there were chemicals involved. In comic book movies, it can only mean 2 things. It's either deadly, or it's going to turn him into a superhero. And spoilers, it's not the latter. But to this movie's credit, Clark himself tries to prevent Jimmy from putting his own life into danger, but he of course insists on his stupid idea since he took the advice of Perry White deep into his heart. To be fair, Jimmy Olsen had a better excuse to put his own life into danger, unlike Lois in Superman 2, who caused the dangerous situations by her own stupid decisions. With Jimmy, however, you somewhat understand him putting his own life into danger since he's a photograph. But Lois, however, you're a reporter for crying out loud. Just wait until the danger's over. So Jimmy then runs behind a fireman truck, but he clearly runs in front of the policeman. I don't get it. Was the joke that the police is completely useless? You know what? Since this is an early superhero movie, it actually makes some sense. Unlike Man of Steel, in which we have Colonel Hardy defeating Zod's entire army due to a heroic sacrifice. Yes, he wasn't a police officer, but the safety for other people is important in both of those jobs.
A good death is its own reward.
Alright, that was the last time you hear me talking about Man of Steel. In this episode, that is. So Jimmy then gets predictably into danger, but Superman then arrives and saves him and a bunch of the employees from the factory. And then gets to the room with the chemicals, and we learn that there'll be a big explosion if the chemicals won't be cooled down.
As long as it remains stable, it's just ordinary acid, no problem. But if it begins to heat up, it'll turn volatile. If that happens, you'll get a great cloud of smoke that'll lead through anything. Steel, concrete, anything.
So Superman flies to a lake, uses his super breath to freeze the tip of the water, and then carries it to the factory. He's also holding it on the side instead of carrying it on the middle. Why wouldn't the ice break? Probably for the same reason why in Superman 4 he could carry the fingertip of the Statue of Liberty without making that one fall off, or in the first Superman movie where he spins the world around to go back in time. There's suspension of disbelief, and then there's a moment like this. Superman of course drops the ice plate down and saves the day from one giant nuke. Aside from what I just pointed out, it was still a pretty cool scene. So Clark then arrives to the reunion party, and then we get introduced to Lana Lang. Wow. Okay, so Clark meets his school friend Lana Lang again.
Lana Lang? Boy, it's great to see you. Oh.
You look wonderful.
Me, no, you look... Wow.
This is the first time, excuse me, you've come back to this little burg since your mom passed away.
Yeah.
Thank God that we have Superman Returns to erase that unfortunate part from continuity. But their conversation gets interrupted by her ex-boyfriend Brad Wilson, who I guess is played by the evil twin brother of Jeffrey Jones.
Hi, Brad. Hey, Ken. Long time no see. You know, see?
Wow. And I thought that my jokes were bad. Well, they still are, but I still put more effort into it. Lana then tells Brad that she's dancing with Clark, which they both proceed to do.
Earth angel, will you be mine?
Meanwhile, we cut to Gus, who awaits his paycheck, and he's quite surprised at the results he made.
Here you go.
Back to Lana and Clark. He's helping her clean up the prom room, and they both share some pretty sweet dialogue together.
Not that I'm complaining, it's just that, I don't know why, I just feel like I can talk to you.
You can?
Yes.
You know something, Lana?
What?
I always wish that you would. I mean, even back in high school, remember when you were...
Between the
between
prom? No.
It's just a shame that this movie lacks the scenes between them both, because I really like Annette O'Toole's performance as Lana Lang, and they both have great chemistry together. But she's also real beautiful. She then talks about how she would like to move out of Smallville.
Do you know how lucky you are to live in Metropolis? The big apricot? I mean, at least here we have a house and I've got a job. Okay, I'm only a secretary, okay, but it pays the bills. Except for last winter when the fuel bills kept going up and up and up.
Life can be unfair at times. If you are living in a small town or village, then you want to become big in a city. If you are living in a city, however, then you want to escape all the pressure and noise and want to live in a small town or village. She also tells him something about her own son.
Oh, no, that's easy to say, but how? And what about Ricky?
Ricky?
My little boy.
You?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And we also find out that the main villain of this movie went to the same high school.
Give me that again, old buddy.
Oh, and speaking of which, we then get introduced to our main villain, Ross Webster, played by Wilbur Vaughn. He learns that some of his money was taken from the company's account. He then finds out that it was Gus who stole the money and invites him for a talk.
You've been a naughty guy, haven't you? Come on, admit it now. But you've been just a little bit naughty, haven't you?
I was a kind of...
Oh, that's all right, pal. I understand. I can... what do the young folks say today? Dig where you're coming from, brother, huh? You want to be rich, right? I was born rich.
And then we get some sock conversations.
Never worn the same pair of socks twice.
What do you do with your socks?
I don't know. They're laundered and sent to some charitable institution, I think. Actually, I don't know what they do with them. Maybe they turn them into dust rags or pen wipers.
Or sock puppets.
Or something like that.
Or maybe socks.
Yeah, that never occurred to me. Gus, you know something? You're a genius. A naughty genius, but what the hell? Nobody's perfect, right? Cheers. Computers rule the world today, and the fellow that can fool the computer can rule the world himself.
It's very fascinating how bad his points on computers are. We then also see Gus doing some shenanigans, and I have to admit, that's kind of funny.
Do what they're not supposed to do. You get my drift?
Anyway, Webster gives Gus a raise for his money because he has a problem with a certain country.
What country?
Colombia.
Colombia?
What's his problem with Colombia, may I ask?
Colombia has two important exports, and one of them's coffee. And I have tried to reason with them. Believe me, I have tried. But this one miserable, pissant little country has the gall to think that it can dictate the economy of an open market. Gus, my friend, we're going to teach them a lesson, aren't we?
Mr. Webster.
Destroy the entire Colombian coffee crop right down to the last.
Destroy all the coffee crops? Well, that's different I have to say, but hey, it's all about money, of course. Gus then asks them how to destroy the coffee corpse, and they tell him that they want to use a hidden weather machine, but they need him to use it since he's a very genius.
See, what you want to do, if you don't want him to trace it back, is you got to punch in to some little rinky-dink outfit that has a computer, the little Mickey Mouse computer.
Someplace you can sneak into, right?
Somebody could.
Someplace where nobody knows him, so they can't connect him with us.
Well, Websco has 112 subsidiaries. They're all linked into the central computer system. How about someplace, small?
What a coincidence, Superman is taking his holiday there too. So Gus arrives to Smallwood the same time as Clark, Lana and her son are going out for a picnic. Wow, it just feels like an eternity when I did that the last time. Lana and Clark then talk about her plans about moving out of Smallwood. Meanwhile, however, Lana's son is running around with his dog and then somehow gets unconscious. Clark then finds out about it thanks to his super Wi-Fi and then of course becomes Superman and saves the little child from getting between the grinders. And yes, even his dog makes it out fine. Cue to midnight, where Gus visits a bowling center to use the computer that Webster hid in there. But he first needs to pass by the ex-boyfriend of Lana, who's also doing his night shift there. We then cut to...
You never do pass out, do you?
Nope.
Okay, I have to admit, seeing Pryor wearing this big hat is very funny. I probably find this a lot funnier than I should, but given by the comedy in this movie, I just take it for what it's worth. Well, anyway, they both get drunk with Brad Wilson getting himself powerless. Gus then manages to enter the room with the computer, but he needs to insert 2 keys within the same time. So he pulls Wilson with him despite being as drunks could be, and then adds both keys into the machine, and this is where the main story finally kicks in. How far are we into this movie? Oh boy, this is gonna take a lot longer than expected. So he uses the computer, but he accidentally causes some trouble all over the world, including money-spitting ATMs, excessive account bills, and traffic lights fighting against each other. Wait, what? Okay, that was weird. I mean, it makes me kinda giggle, but it's still silly. Gus then finally used the machine to order a weather satellite to cause a tornado in Colombia?
Gus, tell me, have you ever heard of Vulcan?
Hi, Miss Vulcan.
Vulcan is the weather satellite our government put up in orbit to monitor the weather.
But if somebody were to reprogram it, it could do much more.
It could make weather.
Storms and floods.
Blizzards, heat waves.
Seriously, I don't think that computers work like that. Hell, even if you can control a weather satellite with that certain computer, you can't change the weather altogether. That's not how it works. Well, in this universe, however, it does. And the coffee cups seem to get destroyed due to the bad weather, much to the pleasure of Webster and... Whoa! I can clearly see where most of the money for the movie went.
Boss, it is not my fault.
Gus then comes in to tell our villain that the plan didn't quite work out.
I mean, how was I to know he was going to start doing his thing when you started doing your thing?
What are you talking about?
What am I talking? It was just on television, man. Didn't you see it?
Don't call me ma'am.
I guess it's time to talk about the comedy in this movie. That particular scene has been brought up numerous of times by people to show how bad the jokes in this movie are. Well, it's time for me to talk about the comedy of Superman 3. First of all, let's point at the elephant in the room here. The producers of the movie hired Richard Pryor because he once stated in Johnny Carson's Tonight Show that he always wanted to be in a Superman movie. Pryor was actually just joking about it, but the producers thought that he was serious, and thus he became the main character in Superman 3. But this is where all the problems began, because if you compare his quote-unquote jokes, he was just about everything he's ever done, then you can clearly see that something's not right here. Well, I did a bit of research and I found out that Richard Pryor himself stated that the script was terrible and he only signed him because they offered him $5 million. Personally, I think he had a moment here and there, but compared to most of his stand-up routines in other movies he's done, it's pretty weak. One last note. Richard Pryor was a fan of Superman and he just stuck with a bad script out of respect. So, for the love of God, would you please stop blaming Richard Pryor for how Superman 3 ended up? Well, let's go back to the movie itself. Gus tells Webster that Superman stopped every single catastrophe that the weather machine has caused, and Webster does not take it well.
No. No! No!
Here, let me
Perfect.
help you.
It was a perfect plan. It was foolproof.
And we were the fools.
After that, we get some more comedy of Richard Pryor falling off a building, which should have actually killed him, but for some reason he's completely unharmed. No, seriously, no broken bones, no head injury, and not even a single scratch. I mean, come on, even Wile E. Coyote would be more injured after falling from such a high building. Well, after ignoring the most unbelievable moment in this entire movie, which quite frankly is saying a lot, we find out that Webster tells Gus to find some kryptonite to take down Superman, while Clark himself is writing on an article about his reunion for the newsletter.
Old relationships suddenly seem very much the same. Prettiest girl in the school. She's still the prettiest girl in the school.
Well, I can't disagree with that. Clark gets a call by Lana who tells him that her son told his classmates that Superman would visit his birthday party and she pleads him to speak with Superman since she thinks that he's in very good contact with him.
You can tell Ricky that Superman will be there on Wednesday, all right?
Well, he's gonna get the best home-cooked meal he's had in a long time. You tell Superman we think he's wonderful.
All right.
But Clark.
Yeah?
You're the best.
Wow. It's great to see that Lana Lang isn't one of those shallow characters who just likes other people for their outer appearance. And personally, I think that she is a better character than Margaret Kidder as Lois. Superman then receives a key to the town for saving the life of several people, including Lana's son Ricky, but also for visiting him at his birthday, because that's always a plus. Gus then arrives while being dressed up as George S. Patton. He's given a speech that takes much longer than it should, because in the end, he just intends to give the kryptonite to Superman.
Molded to your well-fed behinds. Now, I don't have to tell you that America leads the world in high-grade plastics. We cannot afford a chemical plastics gap.
I guess this speech takes 1 or 2 minutes, but honestly I think that 15 or at least 30 seconds would have been sufficient. Gus then gives Superman the kryptonite, which doesn't seem to cause any damage to our hero, and Webster of course isn't quite happy about this.
He didn't die. I asked you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing.
However, while the unknown content inside the kryptonite doesn't kill Superman, it does take away his heroic habits. What do I mean by that? Well, for one, he always comes too late to help other people out, he refuses to help other people in the process, and what's worse, Superman becomes evil. And he does such bad things as letting oil get out of a ship, which to be fair is bad for the environment. Gets drunk in a bar, even though I have no idea how that works, considering that his health condition is million times stronger than human beings, or maybe it has something to do with the kryptonite, but I don't know, since we don't really get much explanation for that. And at last he does the most horrific thing ever. He fixes the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Wait, what? Okay, also this scene is kinda funny. Superjack might be one of the nicest takes of a murdered villain ever. I mean, outside of flickering peanuts like freaking bullets. I mean, this is a problem that people tried to fix several centuries ago, and the only one who gets angry about this would be that one guy who sells those mini statues of the Leaning Tower. But on the other hand, it's Superman we're talking about here, and the movie states that Superman right now is more like a normal human being. But there could have been so much more potential, like letting Superjerk being the main villain instead of Webster. Because what's the most we know about Webster? He wants to have money. Despite the fact that he's rich already. I mean, you can ski on your freaking rooftop. Webster wants to cause catastrophes outside Metropolis to gain that money, and he has a sister and a girlfriend and they both don't get along. Well, that's all I know about him. Fun fact. Superman 3 originally wanted to include supervillains like Brainiac and mix this guy into this movie. But for some reason they didn't went with the idea, despite that Mr. Maxie would have been played by Dudley Moore, and Gus Goldman would have been the human guise of Brainiac. But I guess the producers were more interested in adding Richard Pryor to this movie, and they probably knew that would have been way too expensive to add the much better ideas into Superman 3. That's pretty sad, actually. Okay, before everything ends up being too depressing, let's talk about the part that the viewers like the most about Superman 3. And for good reason, in my opinion. Since seeing Superman vs. Superman, which was actually the alternative title funnily enough, really sounds like an awesome idea. We get to see Superman vs. Clark Kent. And the more I think about it, it actually makes sense that the good part of Superman is portrayed by his alter ego Clark Kent. Since the dark side of Superjerk has taken over Superman, and don't worry, it's the last time that I'll call him that, it is up to the tiniest bit of goodness that still remains inside of him. Also, Clark himself is quite weak. He still takes up a fight against his evil self, knowing that this could be his dad, but he has to do it to save the people again. At first it looks like Clark's about to be killed, but he manages to find his spirit again and defeats the evil part of Superman once and for all. It is without doubt the best scene in this movie, but I think the evil Superman should have been the main villain of this movie, or they should have at least added this scene as the final climax of this movie, since this would have left a much bigger impact on the audience. But the producers totally insisted on a more comedic Superman movie, so what the hell do I know? One of the major reasons why the good part got out of Superman in the first place was because the son of Lana, who are both now living in Metropolis, told Superman there's still a good part inside of him. What makes this scene nice is that everyone already thought that Superman was a goner, but he was the only one standing up for him. I mean, yes, it's cliched since it's a little kid talking to the troubled hero, but it's still better than making everyone hate him and he has to make up for it in the second half of the movie. Thank God that didn't happen. So Superman is back again and flies to Webster's building, but he can't find anyone there. However, he then sees a video of Webster and his evil crew revealing their hideout. So Superman flies off against the villains and they use a machine with an Atari game as their aim detector? I really ask a lot of questions in this episode, don't I? This awesome looking game that we're seeing here was originally meant as a tie-in game for the movie, but they for some reason never managed to do that. That's quite a shame because, well, look at it. Both the graphics and the sound of the game were really innovative for its time, especially for Atari 2600. So many possibilities! And so many of them got lost. Superman wants to go against Webster, but his sister uses this big machine to shoot some Kryptonian lasers at him. Gus then destroys the mechanics with an axe to save him, since Gus himself is a nice guy and he doesn't want to be remembered as the man who killed Superman. But the machine also has a life on its own and wants to turn any living creature into its slavery machine. So it takes Webster's sister Vera and transforms her into Dot Matrix.
Oh, I hate these movies!
But Superman then flies off and returns with the chemicals from the factory he saved earlier. He used the chemicals to destroy the overheated machine once and for all, and he even gets Vera out of her curse. Thank God it wasn't a Superman computer. So Superman saves and defeats the villains, he thanks Gus for saving his life, and then gives him a chance to get a great new job, just for Gus to screw it up again.
Well, you got good references, so if you want that job.
Well, nah, this is not for me. I think I'll take that bus. Can you tell me where the bus station is, please?
Good God, looking at him makes me feel like I'm looking at a mirror. Clark then returns back to Lana to tell her how Superman wasn't able to visit them again, but he also asks her if she wouldn't mind to go out on a date with our lovable dork here.
Any day. I'll get my things.
Okay. You know, Lana, I was talking to Superman the other day. You know, he and I, well, we talk a lot, and he felt really badly about you having to pawn your diamond ring. And, well, he found this one just lying around, and he wanted you to have this.
There's nothing bad I can say about this scene. It's a pretty sweet moment. We then come to the last rivalry scene between Clark and Brad Wilson, and that one called for some shenanigans.
Can't I hate you? I've always hated you. You know why?
No.
Because you're nice.
I'm not really.
And nice guys. Then
This is where you're driving down. Lois then returns for one last shoe-wrenching cameo, and Lana is now working for the Daily Planet.
I like your writing a lot.
Thank you. I like your sparkler a lot.
Oh, me too. I couldn't believe it when Clark gave it to me.
Clark gave it to you?
Yes.
It's such a shame that Lana doesn't return in the sequel, but instead got replaced by some cardboard love interest. But hey, at least she would go on to become Superman's mother in Smallville. Wow, my hormones are flipping back and forth now. So there's only one last problem to solve. Could you guess what it is?
Let me push those.
Way to fly, Superman. Way to fly. And the movie ends with Superman signing off again. So that was Superman 3. Any thoughts? Okay, first, let's get the worst parts away. While the comedy can be funny sometimes, it was for the most part just silly, but sadly not in a funny way. Richard Pryor had its moments, but his talent was just wasted. There were plot elements that didn't make sense, like a weather satellite being literally responsible for the weather. They wasted some interesting plot elements or characters that could have made the movie a lot better, and Webster and his crew are some of the most boring villain characters that I have ever seen in a comic book movie. Now to the positives. Everyone in this movie gave decent performances, the practical effects looked great for the most part, the score was pretty decent. Richard Pryor's character Gus Gorman May was a coward plus awkward person, but he still was a skilled character. The scenes between Clark and Lana while being underplayed were pretty sweet and they both had some genuine chemistry together, and seeing Superman fighting himself was pretty cool, but it sadly wasn't the main focus. And imagine how deep this movie could have been with Superman fighting against his own bad self. At last I have to say that it's average in my opinion. I'm very disappointed to say that because I expected a lot more from it since I watched this movie without any biased in nature. But on second thought it was still a lot better than I expected, and it wasn't nearly as bad as most people like to call it. I hope you enjoyed the show, and at last I have to say, maybe I'm funny, but my points are still valid. Hey Rumpy!
How was the review?
Good, but you know, I'm not entirely happy with my new outfit.
Do you want to get your old suit again?
No! Bloody hell! I just think there's something good missing.
What?
Let's see. Jeans pants? Check. Jeans jacket? Check. So what could be missing? Wait! I got it! A jeans fedora!
It looks neat!
Thank you, Barnabas.
I'm Rumpy!
I'm sorry. Well, if you excuse me, I'm going to take a nap. And after that, I'll be working on another review. Hey Zach, awesome hat. How was the review? It's a great feeling to be back. Good. But I have a question. What's up with that stone?